Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all the good things about entertainment. Mostly. With the path of Marvel Studios being, I feel like, a little bit weird as of late, I went to see Captain America: Brave New World and had a mostly decent time, actually. I enjoyed it. I feel like the ticket was for the most part worth it. But there were some aspects that I didn't exactly care for, but I'm going to talk about both. So let's see why and discuss Marvel's direction.
Work with me, Sam.
A lot of people complain that the Marvel stories kind of get a little bit samey as they go on, and I do think that that can be the case. I feel like a lot of their movies have way too similar tone, story, and vibe to them. I think especially some of the early Marvel movies. It's not the case for all of them, but there are some that they just feel a little bit too much like each other, where they all feel part of the same thing and not their own separate movies. Thankfully, I do feel like that case is sort of different with Brave New World. I think they did a good job of making it at least a little bit unique. It was still following a similar vibe, kind of to like Winter Soldier. Not exactly the same, but kind of a similar tone from what I was picking up. They tried to do it more as kind of like a spy thriller, where it's like a detective kind of thing, where they're trying to make peace with things and keep war from happening, but there are like certain actors at play trying to make things happen. And so you're trying to piece it all together and figure out the bigger picture and stuff. And that's kind of like the Winter Soldier movie, like kind of Mission Impossible type situation. So obviously it's not like the most original plot, even in the MCU, but I feel like it was at least interesting. I was invested in the story. I thought that was pretty good, and I think they were pretty good specifically with the tension, especially because Sam Wilson, he's the main character as Captain America, and kind of the problem is making them feel like they're actually in danger. So we know he's not gonna like die or anything. He's gonna keep going, but you know, they can make him get hurt a little bit. They can make other characters have more drastic measures. And so kind of being able to do that, I thought they were pretty good, because he's protected by plot armor, so we can't really do anything about him, but making him involved in other things and trying to prevent certain big cataclysmic events, I think that's pretty good. And I do like that he can still get hurt because he's a normal human. He's not a super soldier like a lot of the others, so I feel like that helps his case of being at least a little bit more vulnerable than some of the other characters. I also think a lot of the characters have really interesting motivations. I feel like the situation where we've had with Marvel is characters don't have much to do. Not necessarily that they don't have much to do. They don't have a reason for doing things, like Eternals. It was kind of dumb reasons. Everyone was kind of just there and things were happening. And like, yeah, there were some reasons, but they weren't very motivating reasons. I do feel like a lot of these characters have good motivations for how they act. Captain America and the President working together can be a little bit weird, especially after the whole Sokovia Accord situation, but they've been trying to make amends in order to bring peace back to the planet, especially after alien invasions and things like that. So they're trying to be better and make things easier. And so they're trying to make bridges and have boundaries that better bridge the gap between the superhero divide. You also have Ross, who he was very against superheroes, or he was just kind of more like wanting to use them as weapons before, but it seems like he's trying to be better about not doing that. Even with the adamantium situation, he's like, this should be shared among the world instead of just one country. And so that I think is pretty good, just trying to be better for that. You have even Bucky, who I believe is running for like congressman. So they're trying to expand beyond just the typical superhero situation, but trying to bridge the gap in those a little bit more to have them involved in different areas, while you're also having Sam Wilson trying to be his own Captain America while following in Steve Rogers' footsteps. And even the villains too, I think they're pretty solid. You know, they're not like super crazy motivated on certain things, but they're not just evil. I think we have a minor villain, Sidewinder, who's played by Giancarlo Esposito, who fantastic. He does a great job at his character. He's a mercenary, and as a mercenary, you just get paid by whoever will pay you the most. And on a job he's on, he doesn't really get his stuff, so he loses his money, and so that gets him pissed. And then he's kind of fueled by being pissed while also being like, well, what if I'm the guy that kills Captain America? Then everybody's going to want my services, that kind of thing. So while it's not like a super evil thing, it kind of makes sense for his type of character. He's not trying to dominate the world. He's not trying to cause major civil unrest. He is just trying to make some money. And so that one kind of makes sense. And then obviously spoilers if you haven't watched the actual movie, but the main villain is not him. It is Samuel Stearns, who we last saw in The Incredible Hulk years ago. He's also known as the Thinker because he was infected by Hulk's gamma blood, like in his brain, and it kind of made him into a little bit of a freak, but he's also incredibly smart. And so he's thinking he could get out of things and maybe be able to be fixed and have a normal life, and that's what Ross promised him. But after he's developed certain weapons or technologies and stuff, and they don't do that, and they say they can't, he kind of gets a little mad. So he wants revenge. And while revenge is not always the best motivation in terms of storytelling, it's a plausible motivation for him. It's not just, oh, I just want to be evil for the sake of being evil. It's at least sort of realistic. Be like, oh, all this stuff happened to me when I was promised certain things. I'm going to be bad and make those people pay for leading me on and treating me like a criminal. So that, I think, is pretty good. I think their motivations are pretty solid, and the way the characters act in this movie, I think, is pretty realistic, especially compared to some other Marvel movies where they're always kind of cheesy and goofy and like not entirely realistic. And I know it's a superhero movie. I know I'm complaining about realism in that, but you have to have aspects of realism, okay? And I think in this movie, they did a pretty good job. You could have had it without the superhero stuff, and I feel like a lot of the plot points could have still worked. And I think that's good. I like that we were able to get that. And so for that point, I do think the story of Brave New World did a good job.
You need a minute?
Nope, let's get this over with. I got shit to do today.
So now let's talk about something negative. And while we mostly keep things positive on this channel, there is one gripe that I have with this movie that I think is kind of hard to overlook. It's what brings my rating down a little bit, and you'll find out that rating at the end of the episode. And that gripe is the fight scenes in this movie. The fight scenes kind of suck. They're not great. Weirdly, the CGI fight scenes, the ones that people are usually complaining about, I think are actually sort of decent. Particularly the ones versus like Sam versus the Red Hulk, or the scene where they're like dogfighting in the sky around Celestial Island. That gives me very much like Top Gun type fights, like just the way it's filmed. I think it's done pretty well with those situations. I think those are decent fights, even despite being CGI. I don't think it's as big of a problem as we've had with some of the most recent Marvel CGI moments. Whew. Some of those haven't been great, but I do feel like these CGI fights, fairly decent. Okay, that's not really my problem. My problem is the real life fight scenes. Okay, the ones where it's just normal people fighting each other. They're on like a spy mission and they're going and stopping some mercenaries. They're not great. They kind of look bad. And here's the thing: they don't necessarily look bad in terms of choreography. In fact, that I don't think is very bad. I think how they're moving, fine. And how they're fighting, pretty standard with the Marvel formula. I feel like it's not anything crazy, but that's not my problem. My problem is that they're not hitting each other. And I know that sounds really dumb because obviously they're not hitting each other. They're actors. They're not actually going to make contact. But the job of the movie is to make it feel real. It's to make him feel like there's actual contact. But it doesn't feel like that's happening. In one particular instance, there's a scene where Captain America, he's fighting like some assassins or mercenaries or whatever, and he goes to hit one with his shield. The mercenary falls down, but at least to me personally, watching that shot, it doesn't even remotely look like the shield hit the person. It looks, so take the mic right here. Hopefully I don't hit it. And I have a ruler here that just kind of works. When he goes, it looks like he just swings through. And like the guy moves and everything, but it does not look like it hit him. Like that kind of thing, where it does not even remotely look like it made contact. And I know they're trying to be safe and whatever. However, you have to make a superhero movie look like people are fighting. Okay? That's crazy. That's crazy. And I know, DC has not always been my favorite, but some of their earlier movies, they make it look like they're actually fighting. And even some other Marvel movies, it makes it look like they're actually fighting. These fight scenes did not feel very good to me. They just felt weak. And it's disappointing because it is a superhero movie. That's one of the best things of a superhero action movie is seeing the people fight together, and you're seeing people bring their skill and agility, have it come together and beat villains or bad guys in general. And that's interesting. It's usually well done. But it sucks when the movie doesn't do it very well. I don't think it's great. And I'm not saying this movie has to be like Creed or Rocky, where it pretty much looks like it's a real thing for sure. And we've seen Marvel do some decent fight scenes. It's just really disappointing that they are capable of making it look more real. I know they have the people and the money to make it feel more real, but the freaking normal people fight scenes in this, they just didn't hit for me. They were not good, and that's a pun intended. I don't know. I just wish they were actually connecting. I want to feel like these characters are actually in danger so I can actually connect with them. I want to be able to physically see it and not have it just barely miss somebody. That's not good. They're not touching each other when they're throwing punches. So for the future of Marvel, we might want to fix that issue.
Sculpting a character in a world this big, I couldn't put a price on that lesson.
So after seeing Brave New World, where do I think Marvel is going right now? Because things are a little bit weird, especially because this movie, it's all right. It's nothing crazy. It's not the best thing I've ever seen, but it's not the worst. Okay, it's not even the worst in the MCU for sure. There are just a few things that I think they got to work on. They got to work on some of their story. This one I think was fairly decent, but some of them not as good. And obviously the fight scenes in this one. But I think the common thing that we're seeing with Marvel properties right now is that it is either fine or it's all right. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's not great. And then there's fairly decent. Deadpool and Wolverine. That movie, so much fun. It also had its flaws, but for the most part, it was pretty fun. Same with their shows. You have X-Men 97. Great show. Loki, great show. Echo, I kind of liked when it came out, but it was just all right. You have the Marvels movie, all right. She-Hulk, it's all right. I know some people hate it. I think it's all right. They're not all good. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I haven't watched the show, but I feel like it kind of looks like crap. And I love Spider-Man, so why would I want to say that? I don't want to say that, but I'm going to give my honest opinion. Looking at the trailers and the clips from it, doesn't look all that great. We're just seeing too much of a mix of quality rather than consistent quality. I want projects that feel like they've been worked on for a long time, whereas some of them just feel like they've been worked on for only a year. And I don't think that's great. Loki season 2 specifically, I feel like did a fantastic job. I thought they were so good. She-Hulk doesn't feel like they made that very quality. Like, I liked the idea of She-Hulk, but the actual execution, not all fantastic. I just think if you have had quality stuff before, I think you have the responsibility to keep up that quality. You keep having money. And even if you're making them more infrequently, I think we all would rather quality work. Just saying. Like, kind of in line with quality, even Brave New World. There are certain qualities that suck, but there are certain qualities that were pretty good about it. Like the cinematography in Brave New World. I know Marvel has not always been like huge for like, oh, they have the best cinematography in the world. No, that usually goes to much different movies. However, I do think that the cinematography in this movie, fantastic. It might be some of my favorite in the whole MCU. And it's not just like, they have the grain stuff like that. Obviously, they shot it on film or tried to do a film emulation. And I do like that kind of stuff. I love when it kind of has that grittier feel to it. And I think that helped. But I liked the shots. I think it really leaned into that spy thriller vibe that they kind of wanted it to feel like. It made it feel more tense. The shots, they felt like a different kind of movie. It felt different than a normal Marvel movie. I want them to experiment with things like that. I think they did great in this movie with that. I think they pushed their cinematography a little bit different than what they've done before. Awesome. I think that's great. Not all the aspects of the movie are the same kind of quality, and that's something I'm tending to notice with Marvel properties. It's why I'm less excited to go see them. And I don't like saying that. I loved going to see Marvel movies, and sometimes I still do. Sometimes I'm excited. I'm like, oh, this property, I'm hoping it's going to be really good. That's not always the case. I feel like we're getting too much of a mix in quality, where some of them are fine, some of them are good, and some of them are kind of bad sometimes. And I don't think that's always Marvel's case. I feel like they've been pretty consistent for a long time, but it's the last few years where things have kind of just dropped off. And I'm not saying like because I want the original Avengers back. Okay, in fact, I thought it was kind of weird when they announced Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. Sure, I'm sure he's going to do a great job, but I thought that was really weird. I'm not saying I want all the characters back. I'm saying I want them to know what they're doing with the characters they have. And I know there's been some hiccups in their production, like with Kang and all that crap. And I'm like, okay, I understand it. However, they're trying to release several movies every freaking year. Maybe don't. Okay, I've been a Marvel fan for a long time, and I could still continue to be a Marvel fan if they're making quality work and just taking longer to do it. Okay, I know like Infinity War and Endgame took years to make. Great. Keep making them over years. Stop overworking people and take your time to make a quality product that feels like there's love and care put into it. It doesn't all need to be corporatized. I want to be excited to go to the theater and see a new Marvel movie. In fact, I even debated if I was actually going to see this movie in theaters because this kind of thing is happening so much more. I don't want to have to wait for a Marvel movie to come on streaming. That kind of sucks. But sometimes I am going to because they don't look that great. The trailers aren't selling me. I want them to put some care into it. Okay, I want them to invoke that same feeling of people being excited to go and see a new Marvel movie, to be excited for the superhero movie. I'm not saying people have superhero fatigue. I don't think that's the problem. I think we're sick of bad quality. And I do think with Brave New World, I think they're trying to go in the right direction. I still think they have a ways to go, but they seem to be trying to course correct and make things a little bit better. But, I guess we'll see where Marvel is headed. So anyways, let's talk about my rating for Captain America Brave New World. And if you don't know our easily entertained rating scale, it goes from least to best, garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day, every day. And this one, I'm probably going to say right mood. Like, it's not my favorite Marvel movie that I've ever seen, but it's obviously not the worst. I will probably watch it again at some point when I do, the marathons and stuff, which is so much harder to do now that there's so many movies and TV shows. It's so hard to do, but I'm sure I will watch it again at some point. So for that reason, I am going to put it at right mood. But that is it for this episode of Easily Entertained. If you enjoyed, be sure to give a like and subscribe so you can be notified of new episodes when they come out every Tuesday. It's always a great time. And if you have any suggestions for movies, TV shows, video games, any entertainment property that you'd like to hear me talk about, I might talk about it. So maybe comment down below and I can add it to my list. I always want new things to check out. But that is all for this episode. Until next time, bye.